Welcome. In this video we will cover the setup and basic operation of the Robo JetFloss machine. When you first unpack the Robo JetFloss, you will find that the deck is securely fastened to the chassis. This is to prevent damage to the motor that could occur during shipping. The machine cannot be turned on or operated in this condition or you risk permanent damage to the motor. So the very first thing you need to do is fully raise the fastening nuts located in each corner, which will then allow the deck to free float on a spring system. This allows the motor to operate at a very high rate of speed, 3,600 RPM, and balance on this spring deck. Once you've done that, you can then plug in the power and test the operation of the machine itself. Being a commercial grade cotton candy machine, the Robo JetFloss ships with a 20 amperage power cord that uses a commercial twist lock connector. If you're not working in a permanent facility that has that type of an outlet, you can buy adapters that will take a twist lock and convert it to a standard 3-prong outlet, or you can buy entire replacement cords to plug right into the back of the Robo JetFloss that don't need separate adapters. If you have any difficulty finding these, feel free to visit our website or email us and we will send you links to where these can be purchased very affordably online. At this point you can plug one of these into the back of the Robo JetFloss and turn on the power to test the motor, again only after making sure the deck is free floating. If however you turn on the power and find that the unit does not power on and the motor does not spin, don't panic. There's an internal circuit breaker for safety reasons inside of the main housing that due to shipping vibrations can occasionally trip. If that's the case, the motor will not start, but I will show you how to easily reset that now. In order to access the internal circuit breaker, first set the Robo JetFloss on its back, and then, using a standard slotted screwdriver, you can remove the 4 rubber feet from the bottom, 1 screw per foot, and at that point you can remove the access panel from the bottom of the unit, and you will find the circuit breaker down here at the bottom. It works just like a typical household circuit breaker. Flip it into the onward position, you'll be able to put the feet back on with the cover, plug the machine back in, and you will find the motor will then start. And so now here's a close-up of the inside of the machine. The circuit breaker looks just like a household breaker, and again, during shipping, sometimes vibrations will cause this to trip, and you'll find it in the downward position. If that's the case, you'll see 2 little windows with green inside, telling you that the unit is in safe mode, meaning it's not powered, it won't function. And if this is the case, all you need to do is press the switch up, and at this point, you can put the base cover back on, and the machine will operate. The next step is to install the silicone sealing collar and the silicone airflow restriction ring on the stator of the Robo JetFloss. The unit ships with 1 collar and 2 of the air restriction rings. These are silicone, they are flexible and stretch quite easily. However, do not stretch them too far, they can break. The purpose of the collar on top is to seal the floss pan and simply prevent sugar from falling onto the base of the unit. That'll be our next step. However, the airflow restriction ring is designed to do just that, to restrict the amount of airflow making it to the impeller and therefore controlling the amount of updraft produced by the machine. The actual stator itself allows for up to 1 3/8 inches of air intake, and we're using the silicone ring to restrict how much of that register is open. For indoor usage, you want to restrict that down to about 1/4 inch. Much more than that, and you will have such a forceful updraft you won't be able to control or make cotton candy. Outdoor use in high humidity, you can have this more wide open, and we'll cover that in future videos. But for now, fit your silicone ring for indoor usage to about 1/4 inch, and that will be sufficient to start. The next step is to attach the floss pan, and we will do that now. Attaching the floss pan to the Robo JetFloss is very simple. You'll see that in each corner, the top of the post has a rubber foot, and that is for supporting the floss pan. And if you look at the bottom of the pan itself, you'll see 4 matching indentations. This is where those divots will be aligned. Simply set the pan on top, align, reach inside, peel up a portion of the silicone collar that we just installed, pull it up on top of the bottom of the pan, and that prevents sugar from falling down onto the deck. That is the only mechanical attachment between the pan and the machine, and the only purpose of the pan is to prevent loose sugar from being flung out and striking either customers or the operator. At this point, you're ready to add sugar floss to the spinning head of the Robo JetFloss. You want to add at least a cup to a cup and a half of sugar floss. You don't want to operate the machine with too little, and you don't want to overfill it either. But once you've added a cup to a cup and a half, or at most 3/4 full, go ahead and give the head a little bit of a spin. You want to balance that sugar. You don't want to start it in an unbalanced condition. Remember, this motor spins at 3,600 RPM, so you want to have it as evenly distributed as possible before you start up the motor and get it spinning. Now let's discuss the control panel for the Robo JetFloss. On the far left side, you see the master power switch, which controls the energy to the motor. On the far right side, you see a power switch labeled heat, which controls energy to the heating coil. Next to that, there's a dial which allows you to increase or decrease voltage being sent to the coil, thereby increasing or decreasing temperature. You can see how much voltage is being sent to the coil through this gauge here, and ordinarily you will want that to be between 60 and 80 volts. The optimum temperature or voltage is going to be dependent on the conditions you're operating in, the amount of wind, the relative humidity, and the type of floss you're working with. That's fully adjustable, and you can test and experiment with that, but the setting will never be exactly the same twice because the conditions will never be exactly the same. We'll talk about those variables in future videos, but for now, experiment and see how changing the temperature affects the production of the floss. However, please note that like adjusting the hot water in your shower or your kitchen sink, there is a thermal lag at play. You won't see instantaneous results from making changes in temperature. So make your changes small and wait a few seconds to see the results. If you try to make large changes, you will overshoot your target and it will take a while to recover. If you have a Pro model, you will also see this fast start button. This is useful for cold starts. You can depress and hold that button for up to 15 or 20 seconds, and that will send full power to the heating coil, which allows you to start floss production in a period of 20 to 30 seconds as opposed to the typical 60 seconds. Now, even without the Pro model, you can manually attempt this as well by taking the control dial and turning it all the way to the right, sending full power manually to the heating element. But again, do this for 10 or 15 seconds at most, and then turn it back down to the 60 to 80 range on your dial. Otherwise, because of thermal lag, by the time you see a result, you may overheat and burn your floss, causing poor production and even smoke, which in some cases could be both unpleasant and set off any smoke detectors in the near vicinity if you're operating indoors. The last topic we have to talk about in this basic setup and operation video is the issue of snow control. When starting the Robo JetFloss from a cold start, the very first few seconds of production will be of low quality. You'll get little bits, strings, even dust if you will, that are not going to be easily collected on a stick or a cone. This is typically called snow. In order to control that so it doesn't litter the environment you're working in, there's included a snow control tool, which is essentially just a cover to capture that, so that it doesn't litter the premises and cause cleanup issues afterwards. Likewise, at the end of production, when the bowl is running very low, you'll also see the quality start to suffer. As soon as I notice that begin to occur, I will usually turn off the power switch to the heat source while leaving the motor spin, collect the last few seconds of good production, and then put the snow control tool on top and collect those last bits of dust. So again, I don't litter the environment. Once every half an hour, depending on how much snow you've collected, you can simply wipe out the inside so that you don't suffocate the spinning head later in the day. And then at the end of the day, just rinse it with water. The sugar will dissolve. That, in essence, is all you need to know to get running with the Robo JetFloss. Essentially, in 10 minutes, you can have it out of the box and producing cotton candy. Now, these are only the basics. In future videos, we will talk about tips, tricks, advanced techniques, things you can do to increase production and profitability, entertainment, salesmanship, cleaning and maintenance. But for now, enjoy your first adventure with the Robo JetFloss and tune in later for additional videos.